Hey guys, how's it going? Delrith here, bringing you another rapid fire style review, this time for the RPG Outward. Outward was developed by 9 Dot Studio and published by Deep Silver. So what is Outward? Well, it's a third-person oriented RPG where, quite simply put, you play a completely normal and non-special individual thrust into an unforgiving world where your decisions matter, with branching stories for you to follow. The best comparison that I was able to draw to this game's playstyle was Gothic 2, and playing Outward really brought up a lot of feelings of nostalgia and fond remembrance for how RPGs used to be in the early to mid 2000s. Playing a game that doesn't hold your hand or guide you in almost any way, shape, or form was really a nice change, and Outward makes no attempts to hide the harshness of the world you live in. With dozens of death scenarios, from slavery to being abducted into enemy dens and needing to figure your way out without a previous save system, it was an interesting experience through and through. Graphically, it's not anything mind-blowing or anything that would stand up against a direct comparison to current AAA titles as far as visual presentation, but it works for the world that they want to build, and it's not ugly by any means. Character models are acceptable for a title like this by an indie game, and the world itself does have some beautiful locations and areas spread across 4 different zones. Each zone has a specific theme, these zones including a mountainous valley region, a thick forest, a swamp, and a desert. All of these are fairly detailed and decent size, offering you more than enough places to explore, with enough variety in the buildings and dungeons in each one to keep it interesting. If there's any major criticism I can offer, it's that a few areas and pretty much all of them feel completely barren and lifeless, and it won't be uncommon for you to run around for a few minutes without bumping into anything, so yeah, there's that. I gotta run, gotta run forever, still running, yeah. So much running! Enemies are also fairly unique, with more than a couple dozen enemy types, each zone littered with various ones for you to encounter while you roam around. I was still discovering new baddies for about 30 hours of game time, constantly finding new ones in certain dungeons and locations that I hadn't encountered anywhere else. The armor and equipment you use looks pretty damn good, with there being a lot of different pieces for you to try on. I think I was up to 16 full sets of gear last time I checked, and I don't think I had found everything in the game. This, complemented with the considerable amount of unique and special weapons to find in Outward, encouraged me to keep playing, as I always found something new. But there's so much loot. I've got so many sets of armor and so many sets of everything. It's pretty freaking awesome. The biggest downside to the visual experience would be the animations for pretty much every character, be it you or an NPC. They're all quite clunky and unimpressive, most of them being incredibly basic in design. Weapon animations pretty much consist of you just flailing your weapon back and forth, not really giving you that satisfaction of impact or representing dexterity, as a lot of melee systems do in the current modern era. If there was anything I'd want them to work on immediately as far as a patch would go, it would be to add more feeling behind your swings. It just looks so lackluster a lot of the time. There's also a lot of technical problems and optimization issues you're going to encounter while playing. I was actually getting constant FPS stutter on a 2080 Ti, while I had friends claiming that in some areas they were getting less than 40. Couple this with a ton of bugs, and it's safe to say that there's a lot of patching needed in the technical sense, with a few of the bugs even being considered game-breaking. Workarounds do exist if you end up losing something like your backpack or falling through the world and getting stuck, or if major quest lines in general just don't work, so definitely look for solutions in the Steam discussions or Reddit before simply giving up. Story-wise, the game's not bad. You start off as a resident of a town, owing a blood price, which is a debt your family carries based on anyone's previous actions, to the place you start in, basically being told you need to pay up or lose your house in the next few days. This motivates you to head out into the world, or for better or for worse, earn the money and briefly pay back your blood price to the town. Skip a while ahead and you'll have the opportunity to join up with one of 3 major factions in the game, each with their own storyline that you'll have to totally commit to do. It's obvious that it wants you to do multiple playthroughs to experience each and every one, especially with heirloom chests that you leave items for new characters in new games, and I honestly appreciated how they prevented backpedaling in any way. None of these stories are particularly amazing, but this is a game more focused on exploration, and they encourage just that, so they were satisfying enough. There's no mind-blowing cinematics or huge battles or anything of the sort, and a lot of the story in the game goes on in the background while you're out exploring, with a lot of the plot being progressed through time and events passing while you sleep. This is bullshit. We literally kicked their ass, and they're assholes, and they suicide bombed us, and then he's like, you get to become God. Who the fuck wrote this? I want to fight the writer. That leads me to mention a neat mechanic in Outward. Time is extremely important. You can actually miss quests, events, and main plot devices if you screw around outside or sleep too much, with things like rescue this person expiring due to them dying if you don't hop to it immediately, which I figured out pretty early on. There's also some survival aspects to Outward based on things like food, hunger, and sleep, but none of these really felt like an issue or too invasive, and I actually stopped paying attention to them because they deteriorated so slowly. They didn't impede me in any way, shape, or form. Oh yeah, and you'll be doing quite a bit of traveling for the story, something that requires you to manually run to the borders of the map each time. Definitely a negative to me after having to do it over and over and over again. I understand what 9dots was going for when they didn't want to add a fast travel system, but I think that at a certain point it would have been alright to unlock something such as, fast travel to major cities or places that you had already visited. I felt as if I was wasting literal hours running back and forth for simple things with nothing to do or kill along the way, mind you, and it really hurt the game flow at times. Combat's super average. Melee is extremely and massively punishing for the first half of Outward, and if you're not using the fastest dodge, you're going to get your ass kicked and die multiple times. Late game, both melee and ranged bow attacks devolve into you simply swinging wildly or shooting wildly at your enemy to kill them with almost zero strategy, none of which looking visually stimulating or being at all satisfying to do. It's a very basic melee combat system, and I wanted a bit more to it, the few skills and abilities that you do get for melee all seeming lackluster and not the greatest. He's on fire this time now. There are a handful of pokes, stabs, and thrusts, with only one that I can think of having any real impact, and it was a leap. Spells, though, are the way to go. If I were to give any advice to those that will play this game solo, it'd be to go that focus, as they seem way more viable to a single player and actually offer a bit more uniqueness in how you play. There's standard magic, rune magic, and chakra magic, each with a different playstyle, and personally I enjoyed the rune system for what it was. I think there were 8 combinations of runes that would cast spells, some of which entirely satisfying to use, like the lightning blast, and I found myself doing a sort of hybrid warrior wizard because of how flexible they were. Cooking offers a lot of food with different buffs and advantages for you, something I enjoyed, and I think there's like 20 or more dishes for you to put together and collect in total. Alchemy too will be something you use all the time, with ingredients off of harder monsters making absolutely ridiculously overpowered potions, like a complete elemental immunity, and some of these options found through randomly throwing stuff in a pot and not told to you, which was neat. Crafting armor and weapons felt mandatory to progress, with a lot of the far better sets of armor requiring you to collect specific types of ore or materials to get them made. You also come across a ton of weapons to make, some of which are unlocked through defeating a few bosses, and I never felt like there was a shortage of recipes in any way, shape, or form. It was all well done, and I gotta give them credit for that. Now, to me, the literal and best part of Onward, without a doubt, is the co-op with one other person feature. I can't tell you how long it's been since an RPG like this had co-op, and I actually struggled to think of another example. Running around with a buddy, exploring together, and completing quests in a non-MMO RPG fashion felt right, and after trying it, I ended up doing most of the game in that way. It felt like it was balanced around 2 people, and being able to build to complement one another in combat felt fantastic. A lot of the boredom or emptiness could be circumvented and completely ignored due to having someone to talk to and run around with, and it was incredibly stable without any disconnects, lag, desync, or glitches of any sort happening because of the co-op. At no point did myself or the people I played with experience any negatives to the system, and I can fully say that if you're going to play Outward, play it with a friend. You can do this with split screen or online, so the options aren't limited, and I have to give huge props to 9dots for going and taking the time to implement it. It just feels right and incredibly well done. Good job. In the end, Outward is getting a solid 7 out of 10. It's a good game by all means for what it tries to be, and is a pretty solid exploration RPG experience. It's a throwback to games of long ago, and it does it in all the right ways, with none of the negatives being bad enough to deter me from suggesting it to you. At the price point of $40, it's entirely worth it. I could say I got 40 hours out of it easily, and that entirely validates what they ask for it. And that's going to be it for this rapid fire style review. If you liked it, do me a solid and hit that like button. And if you're already subscribed, ring the bell to get notifications on new videos in the future. As well, if you like the rapid fire reviews or would like to see when I'm doing them live on Twitch, you can head over to my Twitter at AJSADelrith and give me a follow. I'd appreciate it. Until the next video, this is Delrith, and I'll be seeing you.